The sky over Valtheris Prime burned red as the strange ship fell from the clouds. It was nothing like the sleek vessels that normally crossed the planet's atmosphere. This one tumbled and spun, leaving a trail of black smoke behind it. Pieces of metal broke off and scattered across the air. The ship was dying and everyone could see it. On the ground, alarms rang out across the Royal Palace complex. Soldiers ran to their positions, weapons ready. The palace defense systems locked onto the falling ship, ready to destroy it before it could crash into anything important. But then a voice came through the communications network. It was calm and steady. "Hold your fire," Queen Arya said. She stood in her command center, watching the screens with cold eyes. The queen was tall and elegant, with silver skin that seemed to glow in the dim light. She had ruled the Valtherian Empire for 3,000 years, and in all that time she had never seen a ship quite like this one. "Let it land. I want to see what crawls out of it." The ship crashed into an empty field just outside the palace walls. The impact shook the ground and sent up a massive cloud of dust. When the dust cleared, the ship lay broken and silent. Its hull was cracked open in several places and strange fluids leaked out onto the grass. The soldiers moved in carefully, surrounding the wreckage with their weapons raised. For several minutes, nothing happened. The soldiers waited, tense and ready. Then a door on the side of the ship hissed open. A figure stumbled out into the sunlight. He was humanoid in shape, but clearly not Valtherian. He had pale skin, dark hair, and wore a torn gray jumpsuit covered in burn marks. Blood dripped from a cut above his eye, but he was alive. The stranger's name was Taiwung, though no one knew that yet. He looked around at the circle of soldiers and their glowing weapons. Most people would have been terrified. Most people would have raised their hands and begged for mercy. Taiwung did neither. He simply stood there, calm and quiet, studying his surroundings like he was trying to understand where he had landed. "On your knees, alien," shouted General Dalsu, the commander of the Royal Guard. He was a massive warrior with dark armor and a scarred face. He had fought in 100 battles and feared nothing. But something about this stranger made him uneasy. "On your knees or we will fire." Taiwung looked at the general. He didn't understand the Valtherian language, but the meaning was clear enough. Instead of kneeling, he reached into his pocket. 50 weapons charged with energy ready to fire. But Taiwung only pulled out a small metal device. It looked like a broken piece of equipment, nothing more. He pressed a button on its side. A pulse of energy spread out from the device in a wide circle. Every weapon in the soldier's hands suddenly went dead. The energy cells drained in an instant. The weapons became nothing more than useless chunks of metal. The soldiers stared at their guns in shock and confusion. General Dalsu looked at his own weapon, then back at the stranger, his eyes wide with anger and fear. "Interesting," came Queen Arya's voice. She had left her command center and now stood at the edge of the circle. The soldiers parted immediately to let her through. She walked slowly toward Taiwung, her long robes flowing behind her. Beside her walked Kalith, her sacred beast. Kalith was a creature of legend. It was huge, nearly twice the height of a man, with a body that seemed to be part organic and part machine. Its skin was covered in dark scales that gleamed like polished metal. Its eyes glowed bright blue, and when it moved, servos and muscles worked together in perfect harmony. The beast had been bonded to Queen Arya for 200 years. In all that time, it had never disobeyed her. Not once. Arya stopped a few meters from Taiwung. She studied him the way a scientist might study an interesting specimen. Taiwung looked back at her without fear. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Arya smiled, though it was a cold smile without warmth. "You have courage, stranger," she said. Taiwung's device began to translate her words into his language. "Tell me, what are you and where do you come from?" Taiwung took a breath. His body hurt and he was tired, but his mind was clear. "I am human," he said, his voice steady. "My name is Taiwung. I come from Earth, a planet far from here. My ship was caught in a wormhole. I did not mean to come to your world. I only want to repair my ship and leave." Arya tilted her head slightly. "Human, I have never heard of such a species. And you expect me to believe you crashed here by accident?" She gestured at the wreckage of his ship. "Your vessel is primitive, yet you carry technology that can disable our weapons. Explain this contradiction." "My people learned to adapt," Taiwung said simply. "We may not have the most powerful ships or the strongest weapons, but we know how to solve problems. We know how to survive." Before Arya could respond, something unexpected happened.
Kalith moved.
The great beast took a step forward away from Arya's side. its blue eyes fixed on Taewong. Arya's expression changed instantly. Her calm mask cracked, showing surprise and something close to alarm. "Kaleth, stay," Arya commanded, her voice sharp. She sent a mental command through their telepathic bond, ordering the beast to return to her side. But Kaleth did not obey. Instead, it took another step toward Taewong, and then another. The soldiers backed away nervously. Even General Dalsu looked uncertain. Kaleth walked right up to Taewong and stopped. The beast towered over him, its massive head looking down at the small human. Taewong stood his ground, though his heart was pounding. He could feel the power radiating from the creature, could see the weapons built into its body. One wrong move and it could tear him apart. But Kaleth did not attack. Instead, it lowered its great head slowly until it was level with Taewong's chest. Then, to the shock of everyone watching, the sacred beast bowed. It was a gesture of submission, of respect. In 200 years, Kaleth had never bowed to anyone except Queen Arya. Until now. The silence that followed was absolute. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the wind seemed to stop. Queen Arya stared at her sacred beast with an expression that no one had ever seen on her face before. It was fear mixed with confusion, mixed with something else. Something that might have been wonder. Taewong slowly reached out and placed his hand on Kaleth's head. The beast's scales were warm under his palm. He could feel a faint vibration, like a purr running through its body. Kaleth closed its eyes, and for a moment the fearsome war machine looked almost peaceful. "Impossible," General Dalsu whispered. His hand went to his sword, the only weapon he still had that worked. "My queen, this is some kind of trick. This alien has done something to Kaleth. We should kill him now." Arya raised her hand, silencing the general. Her eyes never left Taewong and Kaleth. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm again, though everyone could hear the tension underneath. "No, this human is now a guest of the Empire. Take him to the palace. Give him quarters and medical attention. Place guards at his door, but do not harm him." She paused, then added, "I want to understand what just happened here." Soldiers moved forward carefully to escort Taewong away. Kaleth lifted its head and watched him go, then reluctantly returned to Arya's side. The queen reached out and touched the beast's scales, feeling the strange new tension in their bond. Something had changed, something fundamental, and Queen Arya, who had lived for 3,000 years and thought she had seen everything, realized she was facing something completely new. This human, this Taewong, was unlike anyone she had ever encountered, and that made him either the most valuable asset in the galaxy or the most dangerous threat she had ever faced. Taewong woke up in a room that was far nicer than any prison cell. The bed was soft, the walls were clean, and there was even a window that looked out over the palace gardens. But the door was locked from the outside, and he could hear guards moving in the hallway. He was a guest, yes, but also a prisoner. The distinction didn't matter much. He sat up slowly, feeling the ache in his ribs. The palace doctors had treated his injuries while he slept. The cut above his eye was sealed, and the burns on his arms were covered in some kind of healing gel. They were efficient, he had to give them that. His gray jumpsuit had been replaced with clean clothes in the Valthyrian style. They fit well enough. A soft knock came at the door. Before Taewong could answer, it slid open. A young Valthyrian woman stepped inside carrying a data pad. She had the same silver skin as Queen Arya, but her features were softer, more curious than cold. Her eyes were bright with intelligence and something that looked like excitement. "Hello," she said in heavily accented but understandable human language. "My name is Hye-jin. I am a xenobiologist. The Queen has assigned me to learn about your species. I hope you do not mind answering some questions." Taewong stood and nodded politely. "I don't mind, but I have some questions of my own. Where is my ship? Can I see it?" Hye-jin hesitated. "Your ship has been moved to our research facility. Our engineers are examining it. The Queen wants to understand your technology." She paused, then added more quietly, "Between you and me, they are very confused. Your ship is less advanced than ours in some ways, but in others it is remarkable. The way you use energy is very efficient." Taewong allowed himself a small smile. "Humans learned to do more with less. We had to. We didn't have the luxury of abundant resources like some civilizations." Over the next few days, Hye-jin visited Taewong regularly. She asked him about Earth, about human history, about the wars and struggles that had shaped his people. Taewong answered honestly. He told her about the conflicts that nearly destroyed humanity, about the famines and plagues, about the slow and painful process of learning to work together. Hijin listened to every word, her datapad forgotten in her lap. "Your people have suffered much," she said one afternoon. "But you survived. How?" Taewong thought about it for a moment. Adaptability, stubbornness, hope. We refused to give up, no matter how bad things got, and we learned that working together was the only way forward. Hyejin made a note on her datapad. "The Valtherian Empire does not work that way. We believe in strength through hierarchy. The strong rule, the weak obey. It has worked for thousands of years, has it?" Taewong asked gently. "Or has it just worked well enough that no one dared to question it?" Hyejin didn't answer, but Taewong could see the doubt in her eyes. On the 5th day, something strange happened. Taewong was allowed to walk in the palace gardens, though always with guards nearby. He was examining a flowering tree when he heard a familiar sound. The deep rumbling breath of something massive. He turned and saw Kalith approaching through the garden path. The guards immediately moved to intercept the sacred beast, but Kalith simply walked past them as if they didn't exist. It came straight to Taewong and lowered its head, just as it had done when they first met. Taewong reached out and touched the creature's scales. They were warm and smooth, almost like glass. "Hello again," he said softly. "Did you come to see me?" Kalith made a low sound, something between a purr and a growl. It seemed content just to be near him. The guards watched nervously but didn't interfere. They had received orders from the queen herself. Do not attack the beast unless it becomes violent. So far, Kalith showed no signs of violence. This happened again the next day and the day after that. Kalith would find Taewong wherever he was in the palace and simply stay near him. The beast didn't obey his commands exactly, but it responded to his voice, his gestures, even his moods. When Taewong was calm, Kalith was calm. When Taewong was troubled, Kalith would press its head against him, offering comfort in its own strange way. Word spread quickly through the palace. The human and the sacred beast. People whispered about it in the hallways and gardens. Some thought it was miraculous. Others thought it was dangerous. General Dalsu was firmly in the second camp. The general confronted Queen Arya in her private chambers. "My queen, this cannot continue. The sacred beast is yours. It has always been yours. But now it follows this alien like a pet. This undermines your authority. It makes you look weak." Arya sat on her throne, her face unreadable. "Do I look weak to you, General?" Dalsu hesitated. "No, my queen. But the nobles are talking. The military commanders are asking questions. They wonder if the human has some power over biomechanical creatures. They wonder if he could turn Kalith against you, could he?" Arya asked. She had wondered the same thing herself. She had tested her bond with Kalith multiple times. It was still there, still strong. But there was something else now, too. A second connection, faint but real, between the beast and the human. It shouldn't be possible. Everything she knew about sacred beasts said they could bond with only one person. Yet here was Taewong proving her knowledge incomplete. "I will test him," Arya said finally. "Tomorrow in the arena, I will see if he truly has this gift or if it is merely Kalith's curiosity. Summon the human. Tell him he will demonstrate his connection to the sacred beast before the court." The next morning, Taewong was brought to a large arena beneath the palace. It was a training ground where warriors practiced combat. Rows of seats surrounded the sandy floor, and they were filled with nobles and military officers, all eager to see what would happen. Queen Arya sat on a raised platform with General Dalsu standing at her side. Taewong walked out onto the sand. He wore no armor and carried no weapons. Across from him, a large gate opened and Kalith emerged. The sacred beast looked around the arena, then fixed its glowing eyes on Taewong. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Arya spoke, her voice echoing across the space. "Human, you will command Kalith to perform a series of tasks. If the beast obeys you, I will know your connection is real. If it does not, then I will know yesterday's events were merely coincidence. Do you understand?" Taewong nodded. He turned to face Kalith. The beast watched him intently. Taewong took a breath and spoke clearly. "Kalith, sit." The crowd leaned forward. Kalith tilted its head, considering. Then slowly it lowered its massive body until it was sitting on the sand, just like a trained animal. A murmur ran through the audience. Arya's expression didn't change, but her fingers tightened on the arm of her throne. "Stand," Taewong said. Kalith stood. "Turn around." The beast turned in a full circle.
"Walk to the wall."
Kalith walked across the arena to the far wall. then stopped and looked back at Tae-Wung, waiting for the next instruction. The murmurs grew louder. Some people stood from their seats to get a better view. General Dalsu's face was dark with anger and fear. This should not be possible. The sacred beast obeyed only the queen. Only the queen. Arya stood slowly. Enough. She walked down from her platform and onto the sand. Tae-Wung stepped back, giving her space. Arya approached Kaleth, and the beast immediately came to her side. She placed her hand on its head, reasserting their bond. Then she looked at Tae-Wung. How? She asked. It was a simple question, but it carried the weight of 3,000 years of certainty being shattered. How is this possible? Tae-Wung met her eyes. I don't command Kaleth, not the way you think. I speak to it and it chooses to listen. There's a difference. Arya stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. You will remain in the palace. I have more questions for you. Many more questions. She turned to address the crowd. This demonstration is over. You are all dismissed. As the nobles and officers filed out, Tae-Wung stood alone in the arena. He watched Queen Arya walk away, Kaleth at her side. But the beast turned its head back to look at him one more time before disappearing through the gate. The message was clear. The sacred beast had made its choice. It would serve the queen, yeah, but it would also answer to the human. And no one, not even Queen Arya herself, knew what that would mean for the future of the empire. Queen Arya could not sleep. She stood in her private chambers looking out at the city below. The lights of Valtheris Prime stretched to the horizon, a monument to her power and the empire she had built. For 3,000 years, she had been certain of her place in the universe. She was the queen. She was the strongest. She was in control. Now a human had arrived and shattered that certainty in less than a week. She thought about Kaleth. The sacred beast was resting in its chamber below the palace. She could feel it through their bond, could sense its contentment, but there was something new in that feeling. A warmth that hadn't been there before. A connection to someone else. To Tae-Wung, Arya turned away from the window. She needed to understand this human. She needed to know if he was a threat or an opportunity. Perhaps both. She called for her guards. Bring the human to my study. Now. 20 minutes later, Tae-Wung was escorted into Arya's private study. It was a smaller room than he expected, lined with books and data crystals. A single desk sat near the window. Arya stood beside it, no longer wearing her formal robes. She looked almost human in simple clothes, though her silver skin still marked her as alien. Sit, she said, gesturing to a chair. Tae-Wung sat. Arya remained standing. She studied him for a long moment before speaking. Tell me about power. Tae-Wung raised an eyebrow. That's a broad question. Then give me a broad answer. What does power mean to humans? Tae-Wung leaned back in his chair. Power means different things to different people. Some see it as control over others. Some see it as the ability to protect what they love. Some see it as wealth or knowledge. He paused. I think real power is the ability to shape your own future and help others shape theirs. Arya walked to the window. For the Valtherian Empire, power is simple. The strong dominate the weak. The smart outmaneuver the foolish. The ruthless survive and the gentle perish. This is the natural order. This is how we have thrived for millennia. And yet, Tae-Wung said quietly, you called me here in the middle of the night to ask me about power. If your way is so certain, why do you need to ask? Arya turned sharply to face him. Her eyes flashed with anger, but underneath it, Tae-Wung saw something else. Uncertainty. You dare to question me? You asked me here to question yourself, Tae-Wung replied. I'm just helping you do it. Silence filled the room. Arya walked slowly to her desk and sat down. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. Kaleth was created to be the ultimate symbol of my power, a living weapon bonded only to me. No one else could command it. No one else could even touch it without my permission. And yet you arrive and within hours the beast treats you as an equal. Do you understand what that does to me? To my authority? I think, Tae-Wung said carefully, that it shows Kaleth is more than just a weapon. It has its own will, its own desires. Maybe it was always looking for connection, not just obedience. Arya stared at him. You speak as if Kaleth is a person, isn't it? It thinks, it feels. It chooses. That sounds like a person to me. The queen looked away. She had never thought of Kaleth that way. It was her beast, her weapon, her tool. But Tae-Wung was right. Kaleth had always had more awareness than she acknowledged. She had just never wanted to see it. They talked through the night. Arya asked Taiwung about Earth's governments, about how humans organize themselves without a single ruler. He told her about democracy, about systems of checks and balances, about the messy but functional ways humans tried to share power. She found it all fascinating and slightly horrifying. As dawn broke, Arya stood and stretched. You have given me much to think about, human. But words are one thing. Reality is another. She walked to the door. Come with me. I want to show you something. She led him through the palace to a secure communications room. Inside, holographic displays showed star maps and fleet positions. This is the Empire, Arya said, gesturing at the displays. 3,000 star systems, 500 billion citizens, all held together by strength and order. She zoomed in on one system, where red warning indicators flashed. And this is a problem. What's happening there? Taewong asked. A rebellion, Arya said. A former general named Jae Hwan has turned against the Empire. He commands 3 battle groups and has seized control of the Kairos system. He claims I have grown weak. He claims the Empire needs new leadership. She looked at Taewong. He has also developed bioweapons that our technology cannot stop. They consume our ships from the inside out, turning them into dead metal. Taewong studied the displays. How long has this been going on? 2 months. We have lost 7 ships and 15,000 soldiers. Arya's voice was tight with anger. If I cannot stop Jae Hwan, others will rise against me. They will see weakness and they will strike. This is the nature of power in the Empire. You rule through strength or you do not rule at all. Taewong was quiet for a moment. Then he said, let me see the bioweapon data. Maybe I can help. Arya turned to him, surprise clear on her face. Why would you help me? Because those soldiers who are dying are people just like me, Taewong said. And because if your empire falls into chaos, I'll never get home. So it's in my interest to keep you in power. He smiled slightly. For now, Arya considered this. Then she nodded. Very well. You will go to the research facility. You will examine the data. If you can find a solution, I will be in your debt. But General Dalsu was not pleased with this decision. When he heard that the human would be given access to military secrets, he went directly to the Queen. This is madness, he shouted. You know nothing about this alien. He could be a spy. He could be working with Jae Hwan. You cannot trust him. Arya looked at the general coldly. I trust my judgment. Taewong will go to the research facility. You will provide him with a military escort. And you will not interfere. That is an order. Dalsu bowed stiffly and left. But in his mind, plans were already forming. If the Queen would not protect the Empire from this threat, then he would. He began to reach out to allies, to other military commanders who shared his concerns. They met in secret, discussing what should be done about the human and the Queen who trusted him. Meanwhile, Taewong was taken to the research facility. Heejin accompanied him, along with a squad of soldiers led by a young officer who watched him with wary eyes. The facility was a massive complex filled with laboratories and testing chambers. Scientists worked around the clock trying to find a defense against Jae Hwan's bioweapons. Taewong was given access to all the data. He spent hours studying the bioweapons' structure and behavior. They were complex organic machines, designed to interface with technology and break it down at the molecular level. The Valtherian scientists had tried everything they could think of, but nothing worked. The weapons were too adaptable, too efficient. But Taewong saw something they had missed. The bioweapons relied on a specific frequency of bioelectrical signals to coordinate their attacks. It was a narrow band, probably chosen to avoid interference from natural sources. If he could build a disruptor that broadcast on that frequency, it would scramble the weapon's communications. They would lose coordination and become easy to destroy. He explained his idea to Heejin. She was skeptical at first, but as he walked her through the calculations, her eyes widened. This could work, she said, but we would need to modify the disruptor to work with Valtherian power systems. Can you do that? Taewong nodded. Give me a workshop in 3 days. I'll have a prototype ready. He worked around the clock, barely stopping to eat or sleep. Heejin helped him, translating Valtherian technical specifications and fetching equipment. The soldiers watched, still suspicious but also impressed by the human's focus and skill. On the 3rd day, Taewong activated the prototype. The device hummed with energy, broadcasting on the precise frequency needed to disrupt the bioweapons. They tested it on a captured bioweapon. The creature writhed and twisted, its coordination failing. Within minutes, it was dead. Heejin laughed with relief and excitement. You did it. This will save thousands of lives. Taewong allowed himself a small smile. Now we just need to build enough of them to equip your fleet, and then you need to send me to the front lines with your soldiers. I'll need to calibrate the disruptors in real combat conditions. When Queen Arya heard the news, she was pleased but also troubled. You want to go to the battle? You could die. I could die here too, Taewong said. At least on the front lines, I'll be useful. And besides, I want to see these bioweapons for myself. I want to make sure my solution works. Arya studied him. You are a strange creature, Taewong. Most people would do anything to avoid war. But you walk toward it willingly. I'm not walking toward war, Taewong corrected. I'm walking toward people who need help. There's a difference. Arya was silent for a moment. Then she nodded. Very well. You will go with the fleet. But you will stay behind the lines. You will not engage in combat. You are too valuable to lose. She paused. And Heejin will go with you. She knows your technology now. She can assist you. The next day, Taewong and Heejin boarded a military transport bound for the Karo system. As the ship lifted off, Taewong looked back at Valtheris Prime one last time. He wondered if he would ever see it again. He wondered if Queen Arya's empire would survive what was coming. And he wondered if Kalith missed him. Somehow he thought the sacred beast probably did. The Karo system was burning. Taewong could see it through the transport's viewport as they approached. 3 planets orbited a dying star, and 2 of them were under attack. Rebel ships swarmed like insects, launching bioweapons at the defending fleet. Valtherian vessels exploded in silence, consumed from within by the organic machines that ate through their hulls. This is worse than I thought, Hyojin whispered beside him. She clutched her datapad tightly, her face pale. We've lost 12 more ships since we left Valtheris Prime. At this rate, the rebels will control the entire system within a week. The transport docked with the command ship, a massive battlecruiser called the Iron Resolve. The captain, a scarred veteran named Commander Yuri, met them in the docking bay. So you're the human who's supposed to save us, she said, looking Taewong up and down. You don't look like much. Taewong smiled slightly. I get that a lot. Where can I set up my equipment? Yuri led them to a maintenance bay that had been converted into a temporary laboratory. Engineers were already waiting, along with crates of disruptor devices that Taewong had designed. He went to work immediately, checking each unit and making adjustments. Heejin helped him, moving with practiced efficiency. The first test came 6 hours later. A bioweapon had attached itself to the hull of a nearby cruiser. Taewong activated a disruptor and aimed it at the creature. The device hummed, broadcasting its scrambling signal. The bioweapon twitched once, twice, then went still. Dead. Commander Yuri watched through the monitors. It works, she turned to her crew. Distribute these devices to all ships. Every vessel gets at least 3 units. Move quickly. We have maybe an hour before the rebels attack again. The hour passed too quickly. Warning alarms rang throughout the ship. The rebels were launching a major assault. Dozens of their vessels poured out from behind one of the planets, escorted by clouds of bioweapons. This was it. The real test. Taewong stood in the command center, watching the battle unfold on the tactical displays. The Valtherian ships activated their disruptors. The bioweapons that had been swarming toward them suddenly faltered. Their coordination broke down. They drifted aimlessly, easy targets for the fleet's weapons. The Valtherians cut them down by the hundreds. The rebel ships tried to compensate, launching more bioweapons, changing their attack patterns. But it didn't matter. The disruptors were working. For the first time in months, the Valtherian fleet was winning. Cheers erupted in the command center. Soldiers who had been facing death just minutes ago were now celebrating. Commander Yuri clapped Taewong on the shoulder. You did it, human. You actually did it. She laughed, a sound of pure relief. We need to push forward. If we can reach Jaehwan's command ship, we can end this rebellion today. But Taewong was looking at something else on the displays. Wait. The rebel ships are pulling back, but they're not retreating. They're regrouping. He pointed at the screen. See that formation? They're preparing for something. Yuri frowned. Preparing for what? Their bioweapons are useless now. Before Taewong could answer, the rebel fleet opened fire with conventional weapons. Missiles and energy beams streaked across space, targeting the Valtherian ships. But they weren't aiming at the warships. They were aiming at the support vessels. The transports and supply ships that carried the disruptor equipment. They figured it out, Tai Wung said grimly. They know we need those disruptors. If they destroy our supply, we're back where we started. Yuri was already shouting orders. All combat ships protect the support vessels. Form a defensive perimeter. But the rebels had planned well. Their attack was focused and brutal. 3 support ships exploded before the Valtharians could react. A 4th was badly damaged, venting atmosphere into space. Then something happened that no one expected. The rebel flagship, Jaehwan's command ship, broke formation and accelerated directly toward the Iron Resolve. It was a massive vessel, nearly twice the size of Yuri's ship, and it was heading straight for them. He's targeting us specifically, Yuri said. He knows the human is here. He knows if he takes out this ship, he takes out the only person who can build more disruptors. Tai Wung felt a chill run down his spine. Get me to an escape pod? No, Yuri said flatly. If you leave, the crew will lose morale. They'll think we're abandoning them. Besides, where would you go? Space is a big empty place to die. She looked at him. You stay. We fight. The Iron Resolve shook as the rebel flagship opened fire. Energy beams tore through the shields and explosions rocked the hull. The command center filled with smoke. Systems failed one by one. Yuri kept shouting orders, but Tai Wung could see they were losing. The rebel ship was too strong, too fast. They were going to die here. Then, in the midst of the chaos, Tai Wung felt something. It was a warmth in his chest, a presence he recognized. He looked at Hyejin. Do you feel that? She shook her head, confused. Feel what? But Tai Wung knew. Kaleth. The sacred beast was coming. A tier in space opened beside the Iron Resolve. It was a teleportation portal shimmering with energy, and through it stepped Kaleth. The massive biomechanical creature materialized in the vacuum of space, its scales glowing with power. It had traveled across light years, breaking free from Queen Arya's control, drawn by its connection to Tai Wung. The rebel ships hesitated. No one had ever seen a sacred beast in space before. Kaleth was a creature of legend, meant to guard the queen, not to fight in the void between stars. But here it was, moving through space as easily as it moved through air, its weapons charged, energy building in its body. Kaleth struck the rebel flagship with devastating force. Beams of pure energy tore through its hull. The great beast moved with impossible speed, tearing apart weapon emplacements and shield generators. The rebels tried to fight back, but they might as well have been shooting at a god. Kaleth was unstoppable. In minutes, the rebel flagship was crippled. Its engines went dark. Its weapons fell silent. Jaehwan's command was finished. The other rebel ships saw what had happened and began to retreat, fleeing in all directions. The battle was over. The Valtharian fleet had won. Commander Yuri stared at the displays in shock. What just happened? How did the sacred beast get here? It's supposed to be with the queen. Tai Wung didn't answer. He was staring at Kaleth through the viewport. The beast floated in space, its eyes glowing bright blue, looking directly at him. Even through the cold vacuum and the metal walls of the ship, Tai Wung could feel its presence. Its loyalty, its choice. A communication came through from Valtharis Prime. Queen Arya's face appeared on the main screen. She looked shaken, her usual composure cracked. She spoke directly to Tai Wung. The sacred beast left me. For the first time in 200 years, it broke our bond and teleported away. I felt it cross the galaxy to reach you. She paused, struggling with words. How is this possible? Tai Wung took a breath. I think Kaleth made a choice. It didn't abandon you, but it wanted to protect me too. It wanted to help. Arya closed her eyes. When she opened them again, there was something new in her expression. Not anger, not fear, acceptance. Bring it back, she said quietly. Bring Kaleth back to me, and come back yourself. We need to talk. The communication ended. Tai Wung went to the airlock and opened the outer door, protected by an emergency force field. He stood at the threshold between the ship and space, looking out at Kaleth. The beast drifted closer until its massive head was just meters away. Thank you, Tai Wung said softly. You saved us all. But you need to go back now. The queen needs you. Your place is with her. Kaleth rumbled, a sound that vibrated through the force field. Its eyes dimmed slightly, showing something that looked like sadness. But then it turned and opened another portal. The great beast stepped through, returning to Valtharis Prime. The portal closed and it was gone. Hyejin came to stand beside Tai Wung. She looked stunned, I have studied biomechanics my entire life. I thought I understood sacred beasts. But this was something else entirely. How did you do it? Tae Wong shook his head. I didn't do anything. Kalith chose. That's the difference between commanding something and connecting with it. One is control. The other is trust. The Iron Resolve began its journey back to Valtheris Prime. The rebellion in the Karo system collapsed without Jaehwan's leadership. The bioweapons were destroyed. Peace, fragile and new, returned to the Empire. But Tae Wong knew that the real challenge was just beginning. Queen Arya had seen what happened. She had felt her sacred beast choose someone else, even if just for a moment. And that changed everything. When they finally returned to the capital, Tae Wong was summoned immediately to the palace. But this time there were no guards, no weapons, just Queen Arya, standing in her private garden with Kalith beside her. The beast looked at Tae Wong and made a soft sound, something between greeting and apology. Arya placed her hand on its head. I understand now, she said. You didn't steal Kalith's loyalty. You earned its respect. There is a difference. She smiled, and for the first time it was a warm smile. I think, Tae Wong, that you have taught me something very important. Power is not just about control. It is also about connection. She gestured to a bench. Sit with me. We have much to discuss about the future, both yours and mine. The victory in the Karo system changed everything. Across the Empire, people spoke of the human who had saved the fleet. They spoke of the sacred beast that had crossed the stars to protect him. Tae Wong became famous, though he never wanted that. He just wanted to repair his ship and go home, but not everyone celebrated. General Dal Su watched from the shadows, his anger growing with each passing day. The human had too much influence now. The soldiers respected him. The scientists admired him. Even some of the nobles spoke of him with approval. And worst of all, the queen listened to his ideas. Dal Su met with his allies in a secure location deep beneath the palace. There were 5 of them, military commanders who had served the Empire for decades. They all shared one belief: the human was a threat to everything they had built. The queen has grown weak, Dal Su said. She talks of change, of new ways of ruling. She listens to the humans' philosophies about cooperation and shared power. These ideas will destroy the Empire. We must act. One of the commanders, a woman named Bora, nodded. But how? The queen protects him. The people love him. If we move against him openly, we will fail. Then we do not move openly, Dal Su said. We make him look like the threat he truly is. We create evidence. We manufacture a crisis. And when the time comes, the queen will have no choice but to execute him. They worked in secret for weeks building their trap. They staged an attack on a Valtherian colony in a remote system. They used weapons similar to those in Tae Wong's ship. They planted communications that appeared to come from human frequencies. To anyone investigating, it would look like Tae Wong had been in contact with hostile forces all along. The attack was brutal. 3,000 colonists died. When word reached Valtheris Prime, the Empire was shocked. Queen Arya called an emergency council meeting. All the top military leaders and nobles gathered in the Great Hall. Tae Wong was summoned as well. He walked into the hall and immediately knew something was wrong. The usual whispers stopped as he entered. People stared at him with suspicion and anger. Hee-jin was there too, looking worried. She tried to catch his eye to warn him, but guards moved to block her view. Queen Arya sat on her throne, her face unreadable. General Dal Su stood beside her, and he was smiling. It was not a friendly smile. Tae Wong, Arya said, her voice echoing through the hall. A colony has been attacked. 3,000 of my people are dead. The weapons used were similar to human technology. Communications traced to human frequencies were found at the scene. She paused. Explain this, Tae Wong felt his stomach drop. I don't know anything about an attack. I've been in the palace for weeks. You know this. Your guards have watched me constantly. Dal Su stepped forward. The evidence suggests otherwise. He produced a data crystal and activated it. Holographic displays appeared, showing communications that supposedly came from Tae Wong's quarters. They showed weapon schematics, coordinates of the colony. Everything needed to prove guilt. This is fake, Tae Wong said immediately. Someone planted this. I never sent these communications. I don't even know where that colony is. That is what a guilty person would say, Bora said from the audience. She stood and addressed the council. I say the human is a spy. He came here to infiltrate our empire. He earned our trust so he could strike at us from within. The attack on the colony is proof. Murmurs of agreement spread through the hall. Taewong looked at Queen Arya, hoping to see doubt in her eyes. But her expression was cold and distant, the mask she wore when making difficult decisions. "My queen, please," Taewong said. "You know me. You've spoken with me. You know I would never do this. Someone is trying to frame me. I do not know what I know anymore," Arya said quietly. She looked tired, older than her 3,000 years. "The evidence is compelling. And 3,000 of my people are dead. I cannot ignore that." She raised her hand. "Taewong, you are hereby placed under arrest. You will be held in the royal prison until a full investigation is complete. If you are found guilty, the penalty is death." Guards moved forward to take him. Taewong didn't resist. What would be the point? He was one man against an empire. As they led him away, he caught a glimpse of Hee-jin. She was crying and she mouthed 2 words, "I believe you." The royal prison was deep underground, cut into solid rock. Taewong's cell was small and dark, with only a narrow window near the ceiling. He sat on the hard bench and tried to think. Someone had framed him very carefully. The evidence was too perfect, too convenient. It had to be Dalsu. The general had never trusted him, had never wanted him here, but proving it would be impossible from inside a prison cell. Days passed slowly. Guards brought him food and water, but no news. He didn't know what was happening outside, didn't know if anyone was trying to help him. The isolation was worse than any physical punishment. He had survived a ship crash, faced down an alien empire, and saved thousands of lives. Now he was going to die in a cell, alone and forgotten. Then, on the 7th night, something changed. Taewong woke to the sound of his cell door opening. He sat up quickly, ready to defend himself. But it wasn't a guard. It was Kalith. The sacred beast had to crouch to fit through the doorway. Its blue eyes glowed in the darkness, illuminating the cell. Taewong stared in amazement. "How did you get in here? This prison is supposed to be impenetrable." Kalith made a low rumbling sound. It moved closer and lowered its head, pressing against Taewong's chest. The message was clear. The beast had come to be with him. It didn't matter what the queen commanded or what the guards tried to do. Kalith would stay with the human it had chosen. Outside the cell, alarms started ringing. Guards shouted and ran toward the prison. They found the sacred beast blocking the entrance to Taewong's cell, refusing to move. They didn't dare attack it. Kalith was bonded to the queen. To harm it would be treason worse than any crime. Word reached Queen Arya within minutes. She came to the prison herself, still wearing her sleeping robes. She stood outside Taewong's cell, looking at Kalith with a mixture of frustration and wonder. "Leave him," she commanded through their telepathic bond. "Come to me." But Kalith didn't move. For the second time, it defied her. Arya felt the resistance in their connection, felt the beast's determination. It would not abandon Taewong. She looked at Taewong through the bars. "This is your doing somehow. You have corrupted my sacred beast." "No," Taewong said wearily. "Kalith makes its own choices. You know that now. It chose to stay with you for 200 years. Now it chooses to stand with me. That doesn't mean it loves you less. It just means it cares about both of us." Arya was silent for a long moment. Then she turned to the guards. "Leave us, all of you." The guards hesitated. "My queen, it is not safe." "Go," she commanded. They left quickly. When they were alone, Arya sat down on the floor outside the cell, her royal dignity forgotten. "Tell me the truth. Did you order that attack?" "No," Taewong said. "I swear to you I had nothing to do with it. Someone is framing me. Someone who wants me dead. Who? Think about it. Who has never trusted me? Who has always seen me as a threat? Who has the military access to stage an attack and plant evidence?" Arya closed her eyes. Dalsu. But she couldn't admit it yet. Not without proof. If she accused her own general without evidence, it would tear the empire apart. While they talked, Hye-jin and a scholar named Wushik were working frantically in the palace archives. Hee-jin had refused to believe Taewong was guilty. She had convinced Wushik to help her search for evidence. They went through communications logs, military records, anything that might prove the attack was staged. And finally, after hours of searching, they found it. A financial transfer from Dalsu's personal account to a group of mercenaries. Orders to stage an attack and plant evidence. Communications between Dalsu and other conspirators discussing how to frame the human. It was all there. hidden in encrypted files that they shouldn't have been able to access. But Wushik was an expert at breaking old security systems. They copied everything onto a data crystal and ran through the palace corridors. They had to reach the queen before the trial began. They had to save Taewong before it was too late. Behind them, guards shouted and gave chase. Dalsu's people knew what they were carrying. They couldn't let that evidence reach the queen, but Hyejin and Wushik were desperate and fast. They reached the prison just as Queen Arya was leaving. "My queen!" Hyejin shouted, holding up the data crystal. "Wait, we have proof. Proof that Taewong is innocent." Arya took the crystal and activated it. She read through the files, her expression growing darker with each line. When she finished, she looked up at the guards who had been chasing Hyejin and Wushik. These guards wore Dalsu's colors. She understood immediately. "Arrest General Dalsu," she commanded, "and arrest anyone who serves under him. They are all traitors." The guards hesitated, unsure. Arya's voice became ice. "Now, or you will join them in prison." The guards ran to obey. Arya turned back to Taewong's cell. "Open it, release him immediately." The cell door slid open. Taewong stepped out with Kalith close behind him. He looked at Arya and she looked back. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Arya bowed her head slightly. "I am sorry. I should have trusted you." Taewong nodded. "Now you know. The question is, what happens next?" General Dalsu did not go quietly. When the guards came for him, he barricaded himself in the military command center with his most loyal soldiers. For 3 days, the palace was in a state of siege. Arya couldn't risk an all-out assault. Too many innocents would die. She needed another solution. Taewong sat in the council chamber with the queen and her advisors. Hyejin was there too, along with Wushik and several military commanders who had remained loyal. They were discussing how to end the standoff without bloodshed. "Dalsu has access to heavy weapons," Commander Yuri said. "She had returned from the Karo system and taken over as acting general. If he decides to use them, he could destroy half the palace before we stop him. Then we need to convince him to surrender," Arya said. "But how? He knows the penalty for treason is death. He has nothing to lose by fighting." Taewong spoke up. "Give him a trial. A public trial where he can present his case. Let him explain why he did what he did. Maybe he'll surrender if he knows he'll be heard." "He attacked a colony," Bora said angrily. She had been arrested too, but was released when the evidence showed she was coerced by Dalsu. 3,000 people died. What case could he possibly present? That he thought he was protecting the Empire, Taewong said. Right or wrong, that's what he believed. Give him the chance to say it out loud. Let the people judge him. It's better than a battle that will kill more innocents. Arya considered this. Then she nodded slowly. Very well. Commander Yuri, send a message to Dalsu. Tell him I offer him a trial before the High Court. If he surrenders peacefully, he will be heard. If he refuses, we will take the command center by force and he will receive no trial at all. The message was sent. For hours, there was no response. Then, as the sun was setting, the doors to the command center opened. General Dalsu walked out, his hands raised. His soldiers followed, laying down their weapons. The siege was over. The trial was held 3 days later in the Great Hall. Every seat was filled. Nobles, soldiers, scientists, and common citizens all came to watch. Cameras broadcast the proceedings across the empire. Everyone wanted to see the general who had betrayed his queen. Queen Arya sat on her throne with Kalith beside her. Taewong stood to one side not as an accuser but as a witness. Dalsu was brought in wearing chains. He walked with his head high, showing no shame. He looked like a soldier even now, proud and defiant. The charges were read: conspiracy, murder, treason. Each one carried the death penalty. Then Dalsu was given the chance to speak. He stepped forward and addressed the court. I do not deny what I have done, he said, his voice strong. I staged the attack. I framed the human. I did these things because I believed it was necessary. He looked at Arya. My queen, I have served you for 50 years. In that time, you have been the strongest ruler the empire has ever known. But then this human arrived and something changed. You began to doubt. You began to question our ways. You listened to his ideas about cooperation and shared power. These ideas are poison, the crowd murmured. Some agreed with Dalsu. Some did not. Arya raised her hand for silence. Continue, General. The Valtherian Empire was built on strength, Dalsu said. We conquered because we were stronger. We ruled because we were smarter. We survived because we never showed weakness. But this human preaches weakness disguised as wisdom. He says we should share power, trust others, show mercy. If we follow his path, we will fall. Other civilizations will see our softness and attack. The empire will crumble. So you killed 3,000 innocent people to prove this point? Arya asked coldly. Dalsu's face tightened. I sacrificed 3,000 to save billions. If the human remained free, he would corrupt the entire empire. Better to stop him now than watch everything we built turn to dust. Arya stood. General Dalsu, you speak of strength. You speak of protecting the empire. But all I see is fear. You were afraid of change. Afraid of ideas that challenged your worldview. And because of that fear, you committed murder. She walked down from her throne to stand before him. The Valtherian Empire is strong, yes. But strength without wisdom is brutality. And brutality without justice is tyranny. Then the queen turned to address the entire court. Tae Wung did not bring weakness to our empire. He brought a mirror. He showed us what we have become. A civilization so obsessed with dominance that we forgot why we sought power in the first place. To protect our people, to build a better future, to create something worth preserving. She gestured to Tae Wung. This human saved our fleet. He helped end a rebellion. He showed us new ways to think and new ways to solve problems. And some of you wanted him dead for it. The court was silent. Arya returned to her throne. General Dalsu, you are found guilty of all charges. The penalty is death. However, she paused. I am commuting your sentence. You will spend the rest of your life in prison, where you will have time to think about what true strength means. Dalsu stared at her in shock. Why? Why show me mercy when I showed none to others? Because, Arya said quietly, a wise human once told me that real power is not about control. It is about connection. It is about choosing to be better than your worst impulses. She looked at Tae Wung. I am learning, General. Slowly, but I am learning. The guards took Dalsu away. The trial was over. But the work of rebuilding trust had only just begun. Over the following weeks, Queen Arya implemented changes throughout the empire. She established councils where different voices could be heard. She reduced some of the harsher military laws. She opened diplomatic channels with species the empire had previously ignored. Not everyone agreed with these changes, but fewer people opposed them after seeing what blind fear had driven Dalsu to do. Tae Wung's ship was finally repaired. The engineers had done an excellent job, combining human ingenuity with Valtherian technology. The vessel was better than it had been before the crash, faster, stronger, more efficient. It could make the journey back to human space. Yejin helped him prepare for departure. She checked every system twice, making sure everything worked perfectly. As they worked, she spoke quietly. I will miss you. The palace will seem empty without you here. Tae Wung smiled. You'll be fine. You have your work, your research. And besides, I'm sure we'll meet again someday. The galaxy is big, but not that big. She looked at him seriously. Will you tell your people about us? About the Empire? Of course, Tae Wung said. Humanity needs to know they're not alone. And they need to know there are civilizations out here that can be allies, not just enemies. The day before his departure, Queen Arya summoned him to her private chambers. It was evening, and the light from the setting sun painted the room in shades of gold. Kalith was there too, resting near the window. The beast looked up when Tae Wung entered, its eyes bright with recognition. Tomorrow you leave, Arya said. It was not a question. Yes, Tae Wung replied. My people need to know I'm alive, and I need to warn them about the dangers out here. The Empire is just one civilization. There are others, some friendly, some not, Arya nodded. She walked to a cabinet and opened it, revealing a small crystal box. Inside was a glowing blue stone pulsing with light. This is a fragment of Kalith's essence. It was created when the beast was bonded to me. She handed the box to Tae Wung. If you are ever in dire danger, crush this stone. Kalith will know. And if it can, it will come to you no matter the distance. Tae Wung took the box carefully. This is too valuable. I can't accept this. You can and you will, Arya said firmly. Kalith chose you. That bond is real, whether I understand it or not. She smiled, and it was a genuine smile. Warm and sad at the same time. You changed my empire, Tae Wung. You changed me. I want you to have this, so a part of us will always be with you. He bowed his head in gratitude. Thank you, my queen. For everything. For trusting me. For listening. For being brave enough to change. Arya walked over to Kalith and placed her hand on the beast's head. The sacred beast stood and approached Taewong. It lowered its head one last time, pressing against his chest. Taewong wrapped his arms around the creature's neck, feeling its warmth, its strength, its strange affection. "Take care of her," Taewong whispered to Kalith. "Be the guardian she needs." The beast rumbled softly in response, a sound of understanding and farewell. Then Kalith returned to Arya's side. The queen and the human looked at each other across the room. Two beings from different worlds who had found an unexpected connection. "Until we meet again," Arya said. "Until then," Taewong replied. And he knew somehow that they would meet again. The galaxy had a way of bringing people together when they were meant to find each other. He had crossed the stars once by accident. Next time he would cross them by choice, bringing his people to meet these strange and wonderful aliens who had become his friends. The morning of departure arrived too quickly. Taewong stood on the launch platform where his ship waited, gleaming in the early sunlight. A crowd had gathered to see him off. Soldiers, scientists, palace staff, even some nobles who had come to respect him. They stood in silence, watching. Heejin was there, trying not to cry. Wushik stood beside her, looking sad but also excited. He had given Taewong several data crystals filled with Valtharian history and culture. "Share this with your people," he had said. "Let them know we exist. Let them know we want to be friends." Commander Yuri stepped forward and saluted. "You saved my fleet, human. You saved my crew. If you ever need anything anywhere in this galaxy, you call me. I will come." "That is my oath." Taewong returned the salute. "Thank you, Commander. Take care of your people. They're lucky to have you." Then Queen Arya arrived, walking through the crowd with Kalith at her side. Everyone bowed, but Arya barely noticed. Her eyes were on Taewong. She approached him and, to everyone's surprise, embraced him briefly. It was an uncharacteristic gesture for a queen who had always maintained distance from others. "Safe travels," she said quietly. "And remember, you will always have a home here. If your people ever need allies, the Valtharian Empire will stand with humanity." Taewong nodded. "I'll remember. And I'll make sure humanity remembers too." He looked at Kalith. The beast watched him with those glowing blue eyes, and Taewong could feel the connection between them, faint but real. "Goodbye, old friend. Be strong." Kalith made a low, mournful sound. It pressed its head against Taewong's hand one last time. Then it stepped back, returning to Arya's side. The queen placed her hand on the beast's scales, and Taewong could see tears in her eyes, though she tried to hide them. Taewong climbed into his ship. The cockpit was familiar and comfortable, filled with systems he understood. But there were new additions too, Valtharian upgrades that would make his journey safer and faster. He ran through the pre-flight checks, taking his time, making sure everything was perfect. The engines hummed to life. The ship lifted slowly from the platform, rising into the sky. Taewong looked down one last time at the palace complex, at the city of Valtharis Prime, at the crowd that had gathered to see him leave. He saw Arya standing tall, Kalith beside her, both watching him go. He saw Heejin waving, tears streaming down her face. He saw all the people he had come to know during his unexpected stay in this alien empire. Then he activated the jump drive, and the ship shot into space. Valtharis Prime fell away behind him, growing smaller and smaller until it was just another dot of light in the darkness. Taewong set his course for home, for human space, for Earth. The journey would take months, but his ship was ready. He was ready. As he traveled through the empty void between stars, Taewong thought about everything that had happened. He had crashed on an alien world expecting to die. Instead, he had found friendship. He had found respect. He had found a connection with a creature that defied everything science said was possible, and he had helped change an empire that had existed for thousands of years. He looked at the blue crystal Arya had given him. It pulsed softly with inner light, proof that his bond with Kalith was real. He placed it carefully in a secure compartment. Someday he might need it, or maybe he would just keep it as a reminder that the universe was stranger and more wonderful than humans had ever imagined. Back on Valtharis Prime, life continued. Queen Arya implemented more reforms, slowly reshaping the empire into something new. She established diplomatic missions to species she had previously ignored. She reduced military spending and invested in science and education. She listened to advisors who had different perspectives even when they disagreed with her. Some nobles resisted the changes. Some military commanders grumbled about the weakening of traditional power structures, but they saw what happened to Dalsu, and they remembered the human who had saved their fleet. They remembered Kalith bowing to someone other than the queen. These memories made them cautious. Made them think. Made them wonder if maybe, just maybe, change was not the same as weakness. Hyejin threw herself into her work. She studied the data Tai Wung had shared about human biology and culture. She prepared reports about this new species, writing down everything she had learned. Someday, she hoped, there would be official contact between humans and Valtherians. And when that day came, she wanted to be ready. She wanted to be the bridge between two civilizations. Kalith seemed different after Tai Wung left. The sacred beast was still bonded to Arya, still loyal and protective. But there was a sadness in it now, a longing for something that was no longer there. Arya could feel it through their connection. Sometimes late at night, Kalith would stand at the highest tower of the palace and look up at the stars, waiting, remembering, hoping. Months passed. Then a year, then 2 years. Tai Wung's journey home was long and difficult. He encountered strange phenomena in deep space, met other alien species, faced dangers he had never imagined, but his upgraded ship carried him through it all and his determination never wavered. He was going home. He was bringing news of a vast galaxy filled with life. When he finally arrived in human space, he was immediately surrounded by military vessels. They had detected his ship and didn't recognize it. Tai Wung identified himself and transmitted his authorization codes. There was a long pause, then disbelief and joy in the response. "You're alive. Tai Wung, everyone thought you were dead. Your ship disappeared 2 years ago. We searched for months," Tai Wung smiled. "I was further away than you could have searched. But I'm home now, and I have a lot to tell you, a lot to share." He requested immediate transport to Earth, to the headquarters of the Human Space Authority. What he had to say needed to be heard by the leaders of humanity. The debriefing took weeks. Tai Wung told them everything. About the wormhole that had taken him across the galaxy. About the Valtherian Empire and its ancient civilization. About Queen Arya and her 3,000 years of rule. About the rebellion and the bioweapons. About Kalith and the impossible bond they had formed. About the conspiracy and the trial. He showed them the data crystals Wushik had given him. He demonstrated the Valtherian technology upgrades to his ship. He presented the blue crystal that connected him to Kalith. The officials listened with amazement and no small amount of fear. Humanity was not alone. There were civilizations out there far older and more powerful than anything humans had built. But there was also hope. Hope for alliance. Hope for friendship. Hope for a future where humanity was not isolated but part of a greater galactic community. The Human Space Authority made a decision. They would send a diplomatic mission to the Valtherian Empire. It would take time to prepare, to build the right ships, to choose the right ambassadors. But it would happen. Humans would reach out across the stars and make official contact with Queen Arya's people. Tai Wung volunteered to lead the mission. He knew the Valtherians. He knew their culture, their language, their ways of thinking. More importantly, he had friends there. People who trusted him. That trust could be the foundation of something greater. The officials agreed. Tai Wung would return to Valtheris Prime, but this time as an ambassador, carrying the hopes and greetings of all humanity. It took 6 months to prepare. 6 months of building ships, training crew members, gathering gifts and data to share with the Valtherians. Tai Wung spent that time resting, recovering from his long journey, reconnecting with his family and friends. But always, in the back of his mind, he thought about Valtheris Prime, about Arya, about Hyejin and Wushik, about Kalith. Finally, the day came. 3 ships left Earth orbit, heading for the distant Valtherian Empire. Tai Wung stood on the bridge of the lead ship, watching the stars stream by. He held the blue crystal in his hand, feeling its warmth. Soon, he thought. Soon I'll see them again. On Valtheris Prime, Queen Arya sat on her throne, listening to reports from across the Empire. Trade was improving. Science was advancing. Diplomatic relations with neighboring species were strengthening. The changes she had implemented were working, slowly but surely. The Empire was evolving. Then a messenger rushed in, breathless with excitement. "My queen, ships have been detected entering our space. They're transmitting human identification codes. The message says they're a diplomatic mission from Earth." Arya stood quickly. "Show me." The screens lit up, displaying the approaching ships. And there, clear as day, was a message. "This is Tai Wung, ambassador of the United Human Worlds, requesting permission to dock at Valtheris Prime. I've brought friends, and we have much to discuss." Arya felt something she hadn't felt in 3,000 years. Pure, uncomplicated joy. She turned to Calith, and the sacred beast was already standing, its eyes bright, its entire body vibrating with excitement. It had felt Tai Wung approaching through their bond. It knew. The human had returned. Permission granted, Arya said, her voice carrying across the communications network. Welcome back, Tai Wung. Welcome home. The human ships descended toward Valtheris Prime. As they entered the atmosphere, people across the planet stopped what they were doing to watch. The human was returning, the one who had spoken to the sacred beast, the one who had saved their fleet, the one who had changed their queen.